Captain Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of his ship and tried not to think about how old everything looked. The Iron Maiden was 70 years old, and she showed every single day of it. The metal walls had patches welded over patches. The lights flickered when the ship moved too fast. The floor had dents from decades of boots walking across it. Jake pressed a button on his control panel. It stuck halfway down, like it always did. He had to push it 3 times before anything happened. The main screen came to life with a buzz and showed the space station ahead of them. Nexus Station was huge and shiny with lights that sparkled like stars. Next to it, the Iron Maiden looked like a piece of junk floating in space. "We're getting close to the docking bay," said Amy Murphy from her seat at the engineering station. She was Jake's younger sister, and the only person in the galaxy who could keep their old ship running. Her hands moved across switches and dials that most people would not recognize. Everything on their ship was old or broken or both. "Good," Jake said. "I want to get this cargo delivered and get out of here fast." Amy laughed. "Why? Scared the fancy aliens will make fun of our ship?" "They already are," said Pete Collins from the gunner's seat. Pete was old enough to remember when humans first met aliens 50 years ago. His hair was gray and his face had lines, but his eyes were still sharp. "Look at the scanner. 3 alien ships just moved away from us like we have some kind of disease." Jake looked at his scanner screen. Pete was right. A sleek ship from the Zephyrian race had just changed course to avoid them. Its hull was made of some kind of crystal that caught the light from the station. It looked like a flying jewel. Behind it came a massive Korath battleship, black as space and covered in weapon ports. Even the bug-like hive ships looked more dangerous than the Iron Maiden. "Let them laugh," Amy said. "This old girl has taken us through more fights than all their pretty ships combined." "That's because we're too stupid to run away," Pete muttered. Jake smiled at that. It was probably true. Smart people would have bought a newer ship years ago. Smart people would have stayed closer to human space where things were safer. Smart people would not have spent the last 10 years hauling cargo to the edges of the galaxy where anything could happen. But Jake was not smart. He was stubborn. The docking bay doors opened like a giant mouth. Jake guided the Iron Maiden inside, past rows of alien ships that looked like they had been built yesterday. Their ship made noises as it moved. Not good noises. Groaning metal, noises and wheezing engine noises that made other ship captains shake their heads. "Docking clamps secured," Amy reported, "and only 2 of them broke this time." "That's a new record," Jake said. They walked through the station's corridors toward the cargo office. Nexus Station was the biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy. Aliens from dozens of races came here to buy and sell everything from food to weapons to information. The corridors were wide and clean, with smooth walls and bright lights. Jake felt out of place here. His clothes were patched and worn. His boots had seen better decades. Next to the well-dressed alien traders, he looked like what he was. A human from the edges of space who fixed problems with tools and luck. The cargo office was run by a Zephyrian named something Jake could not pronounce. The alien's crystal skin sparkled in the light as it looked at Jake's delivery papers. "Another human cargo run," the Zephyrian said in perfect English. "I am surprised your ship made it here in one piece." "She's tougher than she looks," Jake said. "She would have to be." The alien handed him a payment chip. "Your next cargo is waiting in Bay 17. I hope your ship can handle the weight." Jake looked at the cargo manifest. Medical supplies for a human colony 3 systems away. It was good work, honest work, and it paid enough to keep the Iron Maiden flying for another few months. They were walking back toward their ship when the alarm started. The station's speakers crackled to life. "All ships remain docked. We have pirates in the system. Repeat, remain docked until the threat is clear." Jake looked through a window that showed the space around the station. 3 Korath ships were attacking a small convoy of merchant vessels. The pirates were fast and deadly, their dark ships moving like sharks through water. The merchant ships were trying to run, but they were too slow and too scared. "We should get back to our ship," Amy said. Jake watched a pirate ship fire its weapons at a cargo hauler. The hauler's shields collapsed and the ship started to drift, its engines dead. Inside that ship were probably dozens of people who had done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Jake," Pete said quietly. "I know that look. Don't do anything stupid." "The station security isn't moving," Jake said. "They're just watching." "Because those pirates are connected to powerful people," Amy said. "Everyone knows it. That's why they can operate here." Jake watched another merchant ship get hit. This one was smaller, maybe a family operation like his own. Its distress signal flashed across the scanner, calling for help that would not come. "We can't fight 3 raiders," Pete said. "Our ship is old and slow and barely armed." "But we're still armed," Jake said. Amy grabbed his arm. "Jake, no. We'll get killed." Jake looked at his sister and his old friend. They were right, of course. The smart thing to do was stay docked and wait for the pirates to finish their work. The smart thing was to mind their own business and keep their heads down. But watching innocent people die while he did nothing was not something Jake Murphy could do. "Get back to the ship," he said. "If we're going to do something stupid, we might as well do it right." Pete sighed and shook his head, but he was already walking toward the docking bay. Amy muttered something about stubborn brothers, but she was right behind him. The Iron Maiden's engines wheezed to life as Jake requested permission to undock. The station controller's voice came through the radio. "Iron Maiden, you are ordered to remain docked. Do not leave the station." "Sorry," Jake said. "We have a delivery to make." The docking clamps released and the old ship moved away from the station. Through the bridge windows, Jake could see alien faces watching them go. Some looked curious, some looked worried. A few looked like they were placing bets on how long the human ship would last. "Engines are running hot but stable," Amy reported from engineering. "Weapons are charged and ready." "All guns loaded," Pete said from his station. "Though I still think we're crazy." Jake looked at the 3 pirate ships ahead of them. Each one was twice the size of the Iron Maiden and 10 times more advanced. Their weapons could punch holes through his ship's hull like it was paper. Their shields could stop anything his old guns could throw at them. This was going to be interesting. The first Korath raider turned toward the Iron Maiden like a predator spotting easy prey. Its black hull gleamed with weapon ports that opened like hungry mouths. Jake could see the pirates inside through their bridge windows, probably laughing at the crazy humans who thought they could fight. "Here they come," Pete said from his gunner station. His voice was calm, but his knuckles were white as he gripped his controls. The pirate ship fired. 6 bright plasma bolts streaked through space toward the Iron Maiden. Each bolt carried enough energy to melt through modern armor plating. Jake held his breath and waited to die. But death did not come. The plasma bolts hit the Iron Maidens, deflector screens, and something impossible happened. Instead of burning through the hull, the energy scattered across the ship's surface like water hitting a hot pan. The old mining shields that Amy had jury-rigged from cargo equipment somehow spread the heat across dozens of metal patches. "What just happened?" Jake asked. Amy's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. She sounded as surprised as everyone else. "The shields held. I don't know how, but they held." The second pirate ship moved in for the kill, its weapons charging for another volley. But something was wrong with their targeting systems. The Iron Maiden's readings on their scanners made no sense. The ship's electromagnetic signature was chaos, jumping between frequencies like a broken radio. "Their computers can't lock onto us," Amy shouted over the noise of the struggling engines. "All our jury-rigged systems are creating interference. They don't know where to aim." Pete did not wait for the pirates to figure it out. He opened fire with the Iron Maiden's railguns. The weapons were ancient by galactic standards. While modern ships used energy beams and plasma cannons, Pete's guns fired solid metal slugs using magnetic acceleration. They were primitive, loud, and supposedly useless against modern defensive systems. But the Korath shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They had never been tested against chunks of metal moving at nearly the speed of light. The first railgun slug punched through the pirate ship's shields like they were not there. It hit the hull and kept going, tearing through armor plating and internal bulkheads. The second slug followed, and the third. The pirate ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal fragments. "One down," Pete said quietly. Jake stared at the expanding cloud of debris where the enemy ship had been. "How did that work?" Their shields are made for stopping energy, Amy said through the intercom. But our guns throw rocks, really, really fast rocks. The second pirate ship was already moving, trying to get close enough to ram them. The Korath were famous for their strong ships and their aggressive tactics. Their bio-steel hulls could smash through most obstacles. Jake watched the enemy ship charge toward them like an angry bull. Amy, can our hull take a ramming attack? Probably not, she said. But maybe we don't have to. The pirate ship hit the Iron Maiden at full speed. The impact should have crushed the old freighter like an empty can. Instead, something strange happened. The Iron Maiden's hull was weak in all the right places. Decades of stress and poor repairs had created weak points throughout the ship's structure. When the Korath ship hit, these weak points gave way in a controlled collapse that absorbed and redirected the impact energy. It was like watching a master martial artist use an attacker's strength against them. The ramming ship found itself stuck in the Iron Maiden's hull, its nose buried deep in the cargo section. The pirates were trapped, their engines pushing them deeper into what had become a metal trap. Now would be good, Jake called to Amy. Already on it, she replied. Amy had been waiting for this moment. She triggered an emergency core dump that flooded the breach area with superheated plasma from the ship's engines. The plasma poured into the pirate ship through the hole it had made, turning the enemy vessel into a furnace. The second raider died from the inside out. 2 down, Pete said. The third pirate ship had stopped attacking. Its captain was probably trying to understand what had just happened. 2 modern warships had been destroyed by an ancient cargo hauler that should not have been able to fight at all. Jake could imagine the confusion on the enemy bridge. Nothing about this battle made sense according to standard galactic warfare doctrine. They're running, Amy said. The last pirate ship was already turning away, its engines glowing as it prepared to jump to hyperspace. But before it left, it did something that would change everything. It broadcast the entire battle on the galactic emergency frequency. Every ship within 50 light-years received the transmission. The footage showed the impossible. A rusty human freighter defeating 2 advanced Korath raiders using tactics that should not have worked. Jake watched the pirate ship disappear into hyperspace. The merchant vessels it had been attacking were safe now, their crews probably as confused as everyone else about what they had just witnessed. Iron Maiden, this is Nexus Station Control, came a voice over the radio. Return to dock immediately for inspection. Negative, Control, Jake replied. We have a cargo delivery to make. The truth was, Jake did not want to face the questions that would come if they returned to the station. He could already imagine the alien officials trying to understand how his ship had won an impossible battle. Jake, Amy said, we need to talk about what just happened. Later, Jake said. Right now we need to get out of here before more pirates show up. But even as the Iron Maiden limped away from the battle site, Jake knew there would be no hiding from what they had discovered. Their ship was not just lucky. It was something new, something that did not fit the rules of galactic warfare. They had fought like humans always fought, with whatever tools they had, using tricks that made no sense to anyone else, turning their weaknesses into weapons, and it had worked. Pete was checking his weapon systems, making sure everything was secure after the battle. You know they're going to want to study our ship now, he said. Let them try, Amy said. Half the systems on this ship don't make sense, even to me. I just keep fixing things until they work. Jake smiled at that. It was the most human approach to engineering imaginable. If it's broken, fix it with whatever you have. If it works, don't ask too many questions about why. But as the Iron Maiden jumped into hyperspace, carrying its cargo toward the human colonies, Jake could not shake the feeling that they had started something much bigger than a simple cargo run. The galaxy had just learned that humans did not fight fair. They fought smart, using chaos and unpredictability as weapons that no amount of advanced technology could counter. And somewhere in the depths of space, military analysts from a dozen different species were already studying the battle footage, trying to understand the impossible tactics they had witnessed. The age of human warfare was about to begin. The news traveled faster than Jake had expected. 3 days after the battle at Nexus Station, every major news network in the galaxy was showing the same footage. a rusty human cargo ship destroying 2 modern warships using impossible tactics. Jake sat in the captain's chair of the Iron Maiden, watching alien news reporters try to explain what had happened. Most of them got it wrong. They talked about secret human weapons and hidden technology. They did not understand that the real secret was much simpler. Humans were too stubborn to follow the rules. "Captain, we're getting another message," Amy said from her station. "This one's from Human Defense Force Command." Jake sighed. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the face of Vice Admiral Lisa Carter. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Jake had heard of her but never met her. She commanded the human military forces in this sector of space. "Captain Murphy," she said, "I need to speak with you in person. I'm sending coordinates for a meeting point." "Admiral, we're just cargo haulers," Jake said. "We don't know anything about military tactics." "Captain, in the last 72 hours, your battle footage has been studied by every major military force in the galaxy. The Korath High Command has put a bounty on your ship. The Zephyrian Collective is trying to buy copies of your weapon systems. The Hive is sending bioships to sample debris from your battle." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "We just did what we had to do." "I know," Admiral Carter said. "That's exactly why I need to talk to you. Meet me at the coordinates I'm sending. Come alone. But bring your ship." The transmission ended. Jake looked at Amy and Pete, who had been listening from their stations. "This is getting complicated," Pete said. "It was always going to get complicated," Amy replied. "The moment we decided to fight instead of run, we changed things." Jake studied the coordinates Admiral Carter had sent. They led to an empty system near the border of human space. It was the kind of place where important people met when they did not want to be seen. 2 days later, the Iron Maiden dropped out of hyperspace at the meeting point. Waiting for them was a small fleet of human ships. Jake recognized the design. Older vessels like his own, but modified for military use. They looked tough and practical, without the sleek lines of alien warships. Admiral Carter's flagship was an old cruiser called the Virginia. It had the same patchwork appearance as the Iron Maiden, but its weapons were newer and its armor was thicker. As Jake docked with the larger ship, he could see human crews working on dozens of different projects. The Admiral met him in her ready room. She was smaller than Jake had expected, but her presence filled the space. Behind her desk were holographic displays showing ship designs and battle plans. "Captain Murphy," she said, "you've started a revolution and you don't even know it." Jake sat down in the chair across from her desk. "Admiral, we just defended some merchant ships." "You did more than that." She activated one of the displays. It showed the battle at Nexus Station from multiple angles. Every military academy in the galaxy is studying this footage. They're trying to understand how you won. We got lucky. No, you didn't. Admiral Carter pointed to specific parts of the battle. "Look at this moment when their plasma bolts scattered across your hull. Your sister created a defensive system that no engineer in the galaxy thought was possible. And here, when you used railguns against energy shields. That's not luck, Captain, that's thinking outside the box." Jake watched the battle replay and saw something he had missed before. Every move they made was wrong according to standard tactics, but it worked because their enemies expected them to follow the rules. "The alien races have been fighting the same way for centuries," Admiral Carter continued. "They have rules, protocols, standard procedures. They build their ships and train their crews to follow established patterns. But humans don't have those patterns yet. So we're unpredictable because we're new? You're unpredictable because you're human." She switched to another display showing human ships throughout the galaxy. "Look at these vessels. No two are exactly alike. Every captain modifies their ship based on personal experience. Every crew develops their own solutions to problems." Jake studied the images. She was right. Human ships were all different, adapted to their specific needs and circumstances. It was chaos compared to the standardized fleets of other species. "That's our strength," Admiral Carter said. "Other races see chaos and think it's weakness, but chaos is just another word for flexibility." "What do you want from us, Admiral?" "I'm offering you a choice. You can retire with a generous pension and live quietly on any human world you choose. Or you can help us understand what you've discovered. Jake thought about it. The first option was tempting. He could buy a small farm somewhere safe and never worry about pirates or battles again. But that would mean other people would face the dangers he was walking away from. There's a third option, he said. Admiral Carter raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. We keep doing what we're doing. We take jobs that need doing, help people who need help, and figure things out as we go along. Without military support or official backing, we've been doing fine so far. Admiral Carter smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. You know, Captain, that might be the most human answer I've ever heard. She activated another display. This one showed a star map with several systems marked in red. If you're determined to keep freelancing, I have a job for you. Human colonists in the frontier wars are fighting a losing battle against hive expansion. The aliens have bioships that adapt to every weapon we use against them. Jake looked at the map. The frontier wars were dangerous. Ships went there and never came back. But people were dying while politicians argued about proper military procedure. What makes you think we can help? Because the Hive has never fought humans who don't follow any rules. Admiral Carter handed him a data chip. This contains everything we know about their tactics and capabilities. Study it, then do what you do best. Which is? Make it up as you go along. Jake took the data chip and stood up. We'll need supplies and some volunteer ships. Already arranged. Check Docking Bay 3. As Jake left the Admiral's ready room, he realized that everything had changed. The Iron Maiden was no longer just a cargo ship trying to make an honest living. They had become something new, problem solvers who used human ingenuity to handle situations that defeated conventional thinking. Back on his ship, Amy was already studying the data about Hive biotechnology. Pete was checking their weapons and making notes about what they would need for the coming fight. So, Amy said without looking up from her work, we're going to war against aliens who adapt to everything we throw at them. Looks that way, Jake said. Good thing we specialize in throwing things they've never seen before. Jake smiled. His sister understood exactly what they were up against, and she was already excited about the challenge. That was the most human reaction of all. When faced with an impossible problem, start figuring out how to solve it. The Iron Maiden left the meeting point with a small fleet of volunteer ships following behind. They were heading into the unknown, armed with nothing but human stubbornness and the willingness to try anything that might work. It was going to be an interesting war. The colony world of New Kansas looked peaceful from space. Green fields and small cities dotted the surface like a picture from an old Earth postcard. But Jake could see the signs of war everywhere. Burned areas where Hive bioships had landed, empty towns where people had fled, and defensive positions that would not hold much longer. Governor Tom Brady met them at the orbital station. He was a tired man with worried eyes and clothes that had seen too many sleepless nights. Behind him stood the leaders of other human colonies, all facing the same problem. Captain Murphy, Governor Brady said, I hope you have a miracle in that old ship of yours. We're running out of time. Jake looked through the station windows at the small fleet that had followed him from Admiral Carter's meeting. 12 ships in total, each one different from the others. Mining vessels with improvised weapons, cargo haulers with extra armor, and patrol boats that had been modified so many times. Their original designs were unrecognizable. Governor, we don't have miracles, Jake said. But we have something the Hive has never seen before. What's that? Organized chaos. Amy had spent the journey studying everything they knew about Hive technology. The bioships were living creatures, grown rather than built. They could adapt to new threats in real time, changing their biology to counter whatever weapons were used against them. It was the perfect evolutionary system. But Amy had discovered something interesting. The Hive adapted to specific threats by studying and countering them. They were very good at this when facing predictable enemies who used standard tactics. But what happened when they faced enemies who changed their tactics faster than biology could adapt? The Hive fleet is coming, reported Captain Nick Foster from his ship, the Lucky Strike. Long-range sensors show at least 30 bioships heading this way. Jake opened a channel to all the human ships in the fleet. Remember what we talked about. No standard formations, no predictable attack patterns. Every ship does what feels right in the moment. Make it up as you go along. It was the strangest battle plan in military history. Don't plan anything. The Hive fleet arrived like a swarm of insects. Their bioships were ugly things that looked like they had been grown in a nightmare. Each one was different, adapted for specific roles in their collective strategy. Some were fighters, others were boarding ships, and the largest ones were designed to strip mine entire worlds. The first human ship to engage was Captain Mary Hughes in her converted mining vessel, the Prospector. Instead of using military tactics, she treated the Hive fighters like asteroids that needed to be broken up. Her excavation lasers carved through their organic armor like it was soft rock. The Hive ships tried to adapt. Their armor thickened where the lasers hit. But before they could complete the change, Captain Foster arrived with the lucky strike. When Hive boarding pods tried to attach to his cargo hauler, he flooded his holds with industrial solvent. The organic invaders dissolved like sugar in water. Jake watched the battle unfold from the Iron Maiden's bridge. Every human captain was fighting differently, using whatever tools and tricks they could think of. There was no coordination in the traditional sense, but there was something better, pure human creativity. "Amy, how are our new systems working?" Jake asked. His sister had spent weeks preparing for this battle. The Iron Maiden now carried weapons that should not exist. Railguns that fired smart projectiles with basic artificial intelligence. Shield. Generators that randomly changed frequency to confuse enemy targeting. And Amy's masterpiece, a chaos engine that broadcast random electromagnetic noise across all frequencies. "Everything's working perfectly," Amy replied, which is to say, nothing's working the way it's supposed to, but that's exactly what we want. The Iron Maiden entered the battle like a ship from another universe. Its chaos engine created a bubble of interference that made targeting impossible. Enemy bioships found their organic computers overwhelmed by random data that made no sense. Jake fired his smart projectiles at a Hive cruiser. The rounds were programmed with simple instructions: find the target, avoid obstacles, and cause maximum damage. But each projectile interpreted these instructions differently. Some went for the engines, others targeted weapon systems, and a few simply looked for the biggest concentration of organic material. The Hive ship tried to adapt its armor to stop the projectiles, but how do you adapt to weapons that behave randomly? "Captain," Pete called from his gunner station, "their bioships are getting confused. They keep trying to counter our last attack instead of preparing for the next one." Jake smiled. That was exactly what they had hoped for. The Hive's greatest strength was also its weakness. They were too good at adapting to specific threats, which made them vulnerable to enemies who never used the same threat twice. The battle became a showcase of human ingenuity. Captain Foster used his cargo crane as a weapon, grabbing Hive fighters and throwing them at larger ships. Captain Hughes discovered that her mining charges could be programmed to seek out organic matter, turning them into smart bombs that hunted enemy vessels. But the strangest moment came when the Hive tried to board the Iron Maiden. Their boarding. Pods attached to the hull and began cutting through the metal. Jake was ready to repel boarders when Amy had a different idea. "Don't fight them," she said. "Welcome them aboard." She opened the airlock and let the Hive creatures into the ship. But instead of finding a ship full of humans to capture, they found corridors filled with Amy's chaos engine emissions. The electromagnetic noise scrambled their organic nervous systems, leaving them helpless and confused. "Sometimes the best defense is no defense at all," Amy said as human security teams captured the disoriented invaders. The tide of battle turned when the Hive fleet tried to coordinate a unified attack. Their bioships began working together, sharing information about human tactics and developing countermeasures. It should have been the moment when their superior numbers and adaptive technology won the day. Instead, it was the moment when human chaos became truly devastating. As soon as the Hive ships began coordinating, the human fleet stopped coordinating entirely. Each captain began doing whatever came to mind, changing tactics so fast that no biological system could keep up. The Lucky Strike started using its waste recycling system as a chemical weapon. The prospector began mining asteroids and throwing the chunks at enemy ships. The Iron Maiden activated systems that Amy had built but never tested, creating effects that surprised even her. The Hive fleet broke apart in confusion. Their bioships had never encountered an enemy that became more unpredictable as the battle continued. They tried to retreat, but human ships followed them using improvised tactics that made no military sense but worked anyway. When the battle ended, 30 Hive bioships had been destroyed or captured. The human fleet had suffered damage, but no losses. More importantly, they had learned something that would change the war. Chaos was not just a tactic, it was a weapon. Governor Brady watched the last Hive ship flee into hyperspace. "How did you do that?" Jake looked at his mixed fleet of cargo haulers, miners, and patrol boats. Each ship was different, each crew had fought differently, and somehow it had all worked together in a way that no military academy could have planned. "Did what humans do best," Jake said. "We made it up as we went along." But even as he said it, Jake knew something had changed. The Iron Maiden and her fleet were no longer just cargo ships playing at being warships. They had become something new, a force that could win battles by refusing to fight them the way battles were supposed to be fought. The Hive would adapt to this defeat, Jake was sure of that, but by the time they figured out how to counter human chaos, humans would have moved on to something even more unpredictable. It was going to be an interesting war. 6 months after the Battle of New Kansas, the galaxy had become a very different place. The great alien powers had done something they had never done before. They worked together. The Korath hegemony, the Zephyrian Collective, and the Hive had formed an alliance with one simple goal: stop humanity before their chaos technology spread any further. Jake stood on the bridge of the Iron Maiden and looked at what his old cargo ship had become. The hull was no longer rusty metal patches held together with hope. Amy had rebuilt everything using a combination of human engineering and captured alien technology. The ship's surface was covered in smart metal that could reshape itself during battle. The weapons included everything from Pete's ancient railguns to reality-bending devices that Amy barely understood herself. "Long-range sensors are picking up the Allied fleet," Amy reported from her station. "It's bigger than we expected." Jake studied the sensor readings. The enemy had brought everything they had: 500 ships from 3 different species, commanded by the best military minds in the galaxy. Each ship was a masterpiece of advanced technology, designed to work together in perfect coordination. Against them stood Earth's solar system, which had been turned into something that no alien strategist could have imagined. "Open a channel to all human ships," Jake said. The main screen divided into dozens of smaller screens, each showing a different human captain. There was Admiral Carter aboard her flagship, Governor Brady commanding the Colonial Defense Fleet, and hundreds of other faces Jake had come to know over the past months. Some were military officers, others were cargo haulers like himself, and a few were colonists who had learned to fight when their homes were threatened. "Everyone knows the plan," Jake said. "Actually, everyone knows there is no plan. We do what we always do, make it up as we go along." Captain Foster smiled from his screen. "My ship's ready to cause some chaos." "Mine too," said Captain Hughes, "though I'm still not sure what half my weapons do." That was the point, Jake thought. If they did not know what their own weapons would do, how could their enemies plan for them? The Allied fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Jake watched them form into perfect battle formations, each ship in exactly the right position according to centuries of military doctrine. They moved like a single organism, beautiful and deadly. Then they saw what humanity had built. Earth's moon had been turned into a mobile fortress covered in weapons that followed no design pattern Jake recognized. Mars was surrounded by space, stations that shifted and reconfigured themselves like 3-dimensional puzzles. The asteroid belt had become a minefield of rocks equipped with engines and basic artificial intelligence. But the strangest sight was Earth itself. The planet was surrounded by thousands of human ships, and no two looked alike. Some were converted cargo haulers like the Iron Maiden. Others were purpose-built warships that incorporated alien technology in ways that made no engineering sense. A few were so experimental that their own crews were not sure they would work. "This is Admiral Zexkar of the Allied fleet," came a transmission from the enemy formation. "Surrender now, and your species will be relocated to a suitable world under our supervision." Jake opened a return channel. "This is Admiral Jake Murphy of the Human Adaptive Fleet. We appreciate the offer, but we like it here." There was a pause. Jake could imagine the alien commanders trying to process what they were seeing. They had come expecting to find human space defended by ships following standard military procedures. Instead, they found chaos organized into something that looked almost like a plan. "You cannot win," Admiral Zexkar said. "We have 500 advanced warships against your primitive fleet." "That's what the last guy said," Jake replied. "How did that work out for him?" The battle began when the Allied fleet fired their opening volley. Thousands of energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human positions. It should have been the end of human resistance in space. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships did not try to stop the incoming fire. They absorbed it. Amy's smart metal technology had been shared across the entire fleet, and every ship's hull began adapting to the energy weapons hitting it. But instead of just deflecting the attacks, the ships turned them into power for their own systems. "Energy levels increasing across all human vessels," Amy reported with excitement in her voice. "They're feeding us power." The Iron Maiden's Chaos engine activated at full strength, broadcasting interference across every frequency the Allied fleet was using for communication. Other human ships followed suit, each one adding its own random signals to the mix. Within minutes, the perfectly coordinated alien formation began to fall apart as ships lost contact with their commanders. Jake watched a Korath battleship fire at what it thought was a human cruiser, only to hit a Zephyrian destroyer instead. A Hive bioship tried to board a human vessel, but grabbed a friendly craft by mistake. The Allied fleet's greatest strength, their coordination, became their weakness when they could no longer coordinate. But the real surprise came when the human fleet began to evolve during the battle itself. Amy had spent months developing adaptive technology, but she had never tested it in actual combat. Now Jake watched in amazement as his ship's systems began changing themselves in real time. Weapons that had been firing energy beams suddenly switched to projectile launchers. Shield generators repositioned themselves to cover weak spots that appeared during the fighting. "Jake," Amy called from engineering, "the ship is learning. It's studying the enemy attacks and adapting faster than they can change their tactics." Across the human fleet, the same thing was happening. Ships that took damage used that damage to improve their designs. Weapons that failed were immediately replaced by better versions. Even the crews were adapting, developing new tactics as fast as they could think of them. The Allied fleet found itself fighting an enemy that became stronger with every exchange of fire. Their advanced targeting systems could not lock onto ships that changed their configuration every few seconds. Their battle plans became useless when human vessels refused to behave predictably. The final blow came when Jake realized what they had really created. The Iron Maiden was no longer just a ship with adaptive technology. It had become something entirely new. A vessel that could learn from its enemies and turn their own weapons against them. When a Hive bioship tried to board them, the ship's hull absorbed some of the organic material and used it to grow new armor plating. When Zephyrian energy weapons hit their shields, the ship learned to duplicate the technology and fire it back. "Open a channel to the Allied fleet," Jake said. The screen showed Admiral Zexkar's face. The alien commander looked confused and frightened. "Admiral," Jake said, "you came here to stop human chaos technology from spreading. But you've made a mistake. Chaos cannot be stopped or contained, it can only grow." As he spoke, Jake watched his fleet continue to evolve. Ships were combining technologies from all three alien species, creating hybrid weapons that should not exist. The Iron Maiden herself was incorporating elements of Korath biosteel, Zephyrian energy systems, and Hive adaptive biology. "We don't want to conquer the galaxy," Jake continued. "We want to improve it, but anyone who threatens human space will face ships that learn from every battle, adapt to every strategy, and evolve beyond every countermeasure." The Allied fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. Human ships had learned to use alien hyperspace, technology better than its creators. The fleeing vessels found themselves surrounded by cargo haulers that moved faster than military destroyers and mining ships that hit harder than battle cruisers. The war ended not with humanity's defeat, but with an alien surrender. The Allied powers sued for peace within a week, agreeing to recognize human space and promising never to threaten Earth again. Jake stood on his bridge and looked at what the Iron Maiden had become. She still looked like a cargo ship in some ways, but she was also something unprecedented, a vessel that represented the evolution of war itself. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the communication screen. "Congratulations, Admiral Murphy. You've just redefined what it means to fight in space." Jake smiled. "We didn't redefine anything. We just did what humans do. We adapted." The Iron Maiden had started as a rust bucket held together by determination and duct tape. She had become proof that in the right hands even junk could evolve into a weapon that reshaped the galaxy. And across human space, other ships were already beginning their own evolution, learning from the Iron Maiden's example, and developing new ways to turn chaos into victory. The galaxy would never be the same.